And the most important classification is based on the etiology. Etiology. One is blood loss anemias, which can be acute or chronic. Then the second is due to decreased production, maybe because of iron deficiency, maybe because of the other factors like vitamin B12 and folic acid. Another category is because of increased destruction. That is the hemolytic anemias. Okay? So we can divide the anemias. Blood loss anemias, then decreased production, increased destruction. So this is broad classification of the anemia. And one person was asking me in the BBL, Walaikum Assalam, regarding, there was a question in the BBL, you might have talked to, I think, Dr. Gamal also, that hematuria can it cause iron deficiency anemia? Yes. In the immediate effect, it will not cause. The reason is, because there are iron stores, isn't it? Yes. So whenever there is loss of blood, so iron stores come into effect. Okay, so they replace. So hematuria, if there is an episode of hematuria, the person will not sit at home. He will go to the hospital and get treated. Clear? Clear. So, but if there is chronic, continuous hematuria and the person is not taking the treatment, then it can lead to iron deficiency anemia. Females are there. They have more menstruation. They might not be taking the treatment. So long term, they will have definitely iron deficiency anemia. But hematuria patient most of the time will go and he will get treated. So if it is hematuria, this is excluded. It will not cause in the immediate acute episode will not cause. So what are hemolytic anemias basically? Hemolytic anemias are characterized by, hemolytic means lysis, breakdown of the RBCs. So there is premature destruction of the RBCs, which will lead to anemia. Which anemia? Normocytic normochromic anemia. In iron deficiency, what you find? Microcytic iron. So this is the answer. Okay. So hemolytic anemias will lead to normocytic normochromic anemias. Okay. Due to premature destruction of the RBCs. Second is when the RBCs are destroyed, what will happen now? RBCs destroyed, hemoglobin will be released. So what will happen to this hemoglobin? There will be increased catabolism leading to increased formation of the bilirubin. This will be indirect bilirubin. So indirect bilirubin will cause jaundice. So these are the two things. More destruction, more formation of the bilirubin. Then the body has to compensate. Body will not sit. No, it will compensate. It will try to compensate. What is the compensation? There will be more production of the erythropoietin. Where from the erythropoietin is secreted?
Bone marrow.
Main source is the kidneys. Main kidneys also from liver. So there will be more production of the erythropoietin, which will cause more erythropoiesis. Yes. So what you will find when there will be more erythropoiesis? Reticulocytosis. It means the bone marrow is forming more RBCs. Okay, bone marrow is responding. Okay. When you find reticulocytes more than normal in the blood, it means the bone marrow is forming more red blood cells. Yes. What are basically reticulocytes? Anybody?
The premature of the RBCs. The last stage before getting maturation.
Immature RBCs or young RBCs.
Yes.
Young like you. Not old like me. Young RBCs, isn't it? So these are the young RBCs which you. So three things will be there. Increased destruction leading to anemia, increased catabolism of hemoglobin leading to increased bilirubin, and response of the body leading to more erythropoiesis in the form of reticulocytes in the peripheral blood. So these are in nutshell what is the three main features which are common to all the anemia, hemolytic anemias. How do you classify them? There is a one very good classification. Intrinsic or intracorpuscular defect. Something wrong with the RBC. Think about it. Something wrong with the RBC. Intracorpuscular. Okay? Or intrinsic. Second is extrinsic or extracorpuscular. Means outside the RBC there is something wrong. Okay? Either inside the RBC or outside the RBC. So what can be wrong within the RBC? Okay? One is what can be wrong within the RBC, intrinsic or intracorpuscular. you have two things, either from the birth, hereditary, or acquired during the life. Okay. What is hereditary now? RBC has many parts. It has no nucleus, that we know. It has a membrane.
Yes.
So there can be some defect in the membrane.
Fragility.
It has enzymes. So there can be some defect in the enzymes. It has hemoglobin. So there can be some defect in the hemoglobin. So three things are there: membrane, enzymes,
Hemoglobin.
and hemoglobin. So membrane defects which are from birth, they are like hereditary spherocytosis,
Yes.
hereditary elliptocytosis. Enzymes, you know, the most important enzymes are G6PD
dehydrogenase.
and pyruvate kinase.
Pyruvate.
So you can have deficiency of these enzymes. Okay. Then the third thing is hemoglobinopathy. Something wrong with the hemoglobin itself,
Thalassemia.
like thalassemia and sickle cell anemia. Which of these is common here?
Sickle cell anemia.
Sickle cell anemia is common in this part of the world. Even thalassemia is found here. So acquired, you have paroxysmal nocturnal hemoglobinuria. Again, this is a sort of a defect in the membrane. Okay, defect in the membrane. We will not go into the detail. There is a gene called PIGA, PIGA. Okay, phosphorinositidine. There is an anchor, glycolipids in the anchor in the membrane itself. So that anchor is defective. Okay, that anchor is defective. That will lead to paroxysmal. Paroxysmal means, nocturnal means, hemoglobinuria means. It occurs in paroxysm. It occurs now, then it will occur sometimes after it. Nocturnal means it occurs only during the night.
Yes, yes.
During the night.
Like Nectaria. And
Yeah. So something is happening which is wrong, which happens during the night, and it occurs there. So then this is the intrinsic or intracorpuscular defect. Then we come to the extrinsic or extracorpuscular defect. Yes.
The first hereditary spherocytosis.
Yeah.
Are these the name of the disease?
Yeah. These are the names of the disease which we will discuss. Yeah. We will discuss what are these in detail. Extrinsic or extracorpuscular defect. It means RBCs as such are normal, but there is something wrong outside. So something wrong from outside attacks the RBCs. Got it? It can be immune mediated or non-immune mediated. Clear? It can be mediated by the immune system or may not be mediated by the immune system. So immune mediated are, one is autoimmune hemolytic anemias, in which autoantibodies are there, which are directed against the RBCs. Autoimmune. These can be warm or cold. These can be warm, antibodies can be warm or cold. Second is alloimmune hemolytic anemias. Autoimmune directed against the RBCs. Self RBCs, Autoimmunity. Alloimmune, when there is, outside transfusion is there or erythroblastosis fetalis, RH incompatibility between the mother and the fetus.
Yes.
That is called alloimmune immune hemolytic anemias. Okay? Alloimmune. Autoimmune, inside the RBCs, your own body forms the antibodies against your own RBCs. But here, you need the transfusion from outside. Then your body will form the antibodies. Okay? So these are two. Then non-immune hemolytic anemias, which are not mediated by the immune system. What are these? Due to mechanical trauma in the vessels. There are some diseases like hemolytic uremic syndrome, thrombotic thrombocytopenic purpura, we call it HUS, TTP, then cardiac traumatic hemolytic anemia. Suppose there are cardiac valves, prosthetic valves, artificial. So they can damage the RBCs, okay? So here in these syndromes there can be, formation of fibrin within the vessels. So when the RBCs are traveling, they can get injured when they are traveling through the vessels. Then the chemical injury can be there because of lead poison, or infections like malaria, or hypersplenism. It can also cause more destruction of the RBCs. So these are some of the causes. To sum up, classification. Yes.
Hypersplenism. In the real case, the spleens will be shrinking.
Yeah.
How here is how?
What is the case in BBL? Sickle cell. So there are different causes. You have to go for the sickle cell anemia. Why there is shrinkage? In sickle cell anemia, we call it as autosplenectomy. You got it? So why it occurs, you have to see.
Doctor,
This is this week's case.
yes, doctor.
So you have to see
Doctor?
why it is occurring.
I think the only case or type of anemia that we found hyposplenism is in sickle cell anemia. All other types of anemia,
Yeah. All the other, hyper, this, what do you call it? It as hemolytic anemia, they are characterized by enlargement of the spleen. Why in sickle cell? Okay, I will tell you. You know there is occlusive crisis in sickle cell anemia. Occlusive crisis because these are sickle cells, cells like a sickle, and these can cause thrombosis within the vessels. So block vessel, so infarctions in the spleen and it goes off. Okay, autosplenectomy. Sometimes the whole spleen is gone off. Autosplenectomy we call it as. So to sum up, intrinsic or intracorpuscular defects within the RBC or extrinsic or extracorpuscular from outside. Intrinsic with the membrane, with the enzymes, with the hemoglobin, and extrinsic because of immune and non-immune mechanisms. Clear? Any questions? Clear?
Yes, good.
This is the last time you are allowed, and after this, no attendance will be given because I will be now scrutinizing the people who are coming and I will be keeping them in my eyes. So, extravascular hemolysis. What do you mean by extravascular hemolysis? Today you are attentive but you are lost. That is why I am pointing at you. Yes. Extravascular. Extravascular hemolysis. Outside the vascular system, you can say. Outside the vessels. Where? Amir?
The surrounding epithelium of tissue.
Organs.
Which organs? Very good.
Spleen.
Spleen, liver. Good. Okay. So extravascular hemolysis means it is not occurring in the intravascular compartment.
Particular into
It is occurring mainly in the reticuloendothelial system, spleen and liver.
bone marrow.
And this destruction of the RBCs will lead to the formation of
Bilirubin, then bilirubin.
good. So destruction of red blood cells will release the hemoglobin. So we will talk about the heme portion. Globin we keep aside. Heme will get converted into biliverdin. Biliverdin into bilirubin. Macrophages. In the circulation, what happens now? Bilirubin combines with the albumin. You know these molecules have to combine with somebody. Okay? So they combine with the albumin. So a pair is formed which is called bilirubin-albumin complex. Okay? This complex goes into the liver. Here the bilirubin is released from the complex. Bilirubin is released, albumin goes off. Still bilirubin will be conjugated. Double conjugation is there.
Yes.
So, because why the conjugation of bilirubin is there?
Inside the liver.
Yeah. Why you need to conjugate bilirubin? So that it is excreted out in the urine. It cannot be excreted as such. It has to be conjugated, then it will be excreted out. So conjugated bilirubin in the urine, it goes. Conjugated bilirubin. Unconjugated bilirubin cannot go into the urine. Okay? Unconjugated cannot go. So liver conjugates the bilirubin. This is the function of the liver. So conjugated bilirubin goes into the urine. Okay? And some of this goes into the intestines, where it is converted into where it is converted into what? Conjugated bilirubin. It is converted into urobilinogen. Urobilinogen is converted into urobilins. Okay? And some of this urobilinogen goes back to the kidneys to be excreted, and this is known as, from the intestine to the kidneys, this is known as enterohepatic circulation. Enterohepatic circulation, like this. So what do you mean by this? Extravascular hemolysis now. Destruction of RBCs. What you can say? What will happen in this then? Anybody? What will happen?
Firstly,
Yes.
agent of RBC due to destruction in tissue, macrophage, reticular endothelial system, release biliverdin, bilirubin, conjugation in the liver, then in the intestine form to the urobilogene and other compound, then excretion.
So if there is more destruction of the RBCs, what will happen now?
Reticulocyte will be there.
Reticulocytosis.
No. In this case, what will happen?
There is this
Yeah.
Jaundice.
destruction.
So it means why jaundice will occur at this step.
Liver can't exist.
Yeah.
Yes.
Liver has a limited capacity
Limit.
to conjugate the bilirubin. If it exceeds, indirect bilirubin or unconjugated bilirubin will increase in the blood and will lead to jaundice. Okay? This is how the extravascular hemolysis occurs. Now the intravascular hemolysis. Extravascular because it is occurring within the macrophages. Macrophages
Yeah.
in the reticuloendothelial system.
Yeah.
Got it? Then the bilirubin is released in the circulation. Now, intravascular hemolysis means within the circulation, the hemoglobin is released. When the hemoglobin is released, we call it as hemoglobinemia. Okay? Hemoglobinemia. Then, hemoglobinemia, what it will lead to? It will lead to three things.
Renal failure, block the renal tubules.
Yeah. So, but the thing is, we have to see the pathogenesis. This hemoglobin can bind in the plasma to a protein called haptoglobin. Okay? So every molecule has to bind. Either to the albumin, either to the globulin, either to some other thing. Okay? And one other thing is haptoglobin. For hemoglobin, you have the binding protein which is known as haptoglobin. So free hemoglobin combines with hemoglobin cannot remain free in the circulation. It has to bind with some protein, so it binds with the haptoglobin. Okay? It binds to the haptoglobin. This complex can be taken by the liver and metabolized again to bilirubin. One. Or it will lead to decrease in the haptoglobin concentration. If you suspect there is intravascular hemolysis, you will measure the concentration of haptoglobin. It will be reduced. Why? Because this haptoglobin is bound to the hemoglobin. So it is not free. You cannot measure it. Okay? It will be low or absent. Then some of the free hemoglobin can be excreted out. So it will lead to hemoglobinuria or hemosideриnuria, because when the hemoglobin is excreted, iron is there in the hemoglobin. Okay, this iron, some of it is reabsorbed into the tubules. Okay, when the tubular capacity of reabsorption exceeds, so what happens? First ferritin is there, then the hemosiderin is formed.
Yes.
So even the hemosiderin, some of the cells are then they are excreted out, they are shed. So there is hemosideриnuria also. Then some of the heme in the plasma combines with and forms metheme. In the hemoglobin, which form of iron is there? Ferrous. So when it is free, it gets converted into ferric form. This is known as metheme.
Metheme.
This metheme also combines with the albumin, forms metheme albumin. Okay. So this is the fate of hemoglobin in the plasma. If the hemoglobin is formed in the plasma, there is destruction of the RBCs, hemoglobin is released. Three things will happen. Either it will bind to haptoglobin, form this complex, okay, or it will be excreted out from the kidney in the form of hemoglobinuria and hemosideриnuria, or it can form metheme albumin. These three things will happen. But
Together or one film?
huh?
Together or one film?
All of them.
Together.
Yeah, all of them. Because there is free hemoglobin, some of it will bind to haptoglobin, the remaining of it will be excreted. Some of it will form the metheme. Okay? All the things will happen together. So this is intravascular hemolysis. Is it clear?
This is clear, yeah.
Excuse me, can you go back to the previous slide? So the function here of macrophage is changing bilirubin to bilirubin.
Yeah.
Destruction.
This is all occurring inside the reticuloendothelial system up to here.
Yeah.
RBCs are destroyed within the spleen or liver. Destruction of the RBCs, formation of the bilirubin. Then bilirubin is thrown into the circulation where it combines with the albumin. Then this complex is taken by the livers, okay, and bilirubin is released. It forms the conjugated bilirubin, and this conjugated bilirubin then is excreted in the intestines. This is how it occurs. And free hemoglobin in the plasma can be, filtered by the glomeruli, can bind to haptoglobin, can bind this albumin and form metheme albumin.
So doctor will classify it according to the site of destruction of RBCs.
Yeah. Extravascular hemolysis, intravascular. There are definite diseases in the hemolytic this anemias. Some of it can cause only extravascular, some of it can cause only intra, and some can cause both. Okay. We will see what are the diseases and how they cause. So intravascular and extravascular, what is the difference now? We have a background within the circulation, okay? Outside the circulation in liver, spleen and bone marrow. So here the splenomegaly will not be there. But here there will be reactive splenomegaly because destruction is occurring inside the spleen. So the reticuloendothelial system undergoes hyperplasia. Mononuclear phagocyte system undergoes hyperplasia. So there is splenomegaly. Then the other features are reticulocyte count will be increased in both because the bone marrow will respond by forming more RBCs. Indirect bilirubin will be increased in both. Okay? Because hemoglobin is being catabolized. So more bilirubin will be formed. Serum LDH will be increased in both. Destruction of RBCs. LDH is an enzyme within the RBC. It will also be released. Okay? So more LDH. Serum haptoglobin will be decreased in both because some of the hemoglobin from the spleen, from the liver will escape into the plasma. So it will bind the haptoglobin. Okay? You will say the destruction is occurring in the spleen or bone marrow, extravascular. So why you are saying serum haptoglobin is decreased? Because some of the hemoglobin escapes into the plasma and it can bind the serum haptoglobin. Okay? And so haptoglobin also will be decreased in both. What are the examples now? Causes: mechanical trauma,
Yes.
clostridial toxins, heat, blood transfusion and PNH. These cause intravascular. And extravascular is caused by hemoglobinopathies and immune hemolytic anemias, autoimmune or the hereditary hemolytic anemias. Now what is the difference between the two? One is splenomegaly. I have kept it in red color. Splenomegaly absent here, here the splenomegaly is present. Then these, hemoglobinemia, here present, hemoglobinuria present, hemosideruria present in intravascular. But here all of them are absent. Simple difference. Okay? Huh? Yeah, hepatomegaly can be there. When there is destruction inside the RB, this liver, there will be hepatomegaly.
So hepatomegaly is bilirubin and also vegetable marrow.
You can add hepatomegaly also. Okay? Yes.
Accident.
Mechanical trauma means, look, there are many diseases of the blood vessels. No, not accident.
Mechanical trauma.
No. Trauma. Mechanical trauma inside the vessels. We are talking about intravascular hemolysis. So what happens if there is something wrong with the vessels, like formation of some clot, thrombosis, deposition of fibrin. So when the RBC is walking through the blood vessel, what will happen? It will get injured, isn't it? RBC should have a smooth wall. But when it is, having something, so it will get injured. So this is the mechanical trauma. Huh? So these are the main differences between the two. 4th or 5th difference you added. So you can add that splenomegaly, hepatomegaly, along with, absence of hemoglobinemia, hemoglobinuria and hemosideruria in case of extra. And in case of intra, there will be hemoglobinemia, hemoglobinuria and hemosideruria. But splenomegaly and hepatomegaly will be absent.
So doctor, could you repeat mechanical trauma inside the vessel? How to?
Yeah. I said if there is something wrong in the blood vessels, like formation of a clot, deposition of fibrin. Blood vessels are smooth.
Yes.
The wall is smooth. So RBCs have to walk through a smooth wall. There is no friction. But when you have some thrombosis or fibrin deposits, so RBCs will be injured when they are passing through. So this is called mechanical trauma. What are the lab features now? Lab features are increased RBC destruction. How you will say this is increased RBC destruction? In the lab, there will be first anemia. Second, you will find different types of cells inside the blood film. What are the cells? Spherocytes, rounded cells, schistocytes. We will talk poikilocytes. Different shapes of the cells will be there. Decreased haptoglobin, because hemoglobin has bound the haptoglobin. Increased bilirubin, as we talked, hemoglobinuria, hemosideruria, and oh look, it is good. Hemoglobinuria and hemosideruria. So this is intravascular hemolysis. Then increased urobilinogen and increased LDH. All this we talked. These will be the signs and features of increased hemolysis. What is the response of the RBC in this bone marrow? So there will be increased RBC production. Or how you will see the increased bone marrow response. One is there will be hyperplasia of the erythroid precursors in the bone marrow. So it will be normoblastic. It will not be hypochromic. Okay? It will not be hypochromic like microcytic hypochromic. No. It will be normoblastic. It will not be micronormoblastic. Got it? One is macro, one is micro, one is normo. So here also normoblastic erythroid hyperplasia in the bone marrow will be there. Then, when there is erythroid hyperplasia, so this ratio will be decreased. This is ME ratio. Myeloid erythroid ratio will be decreased because this is increasing. This portion is increasing, so ratio will be decreased. Okay. Then in the blood film, what you will find? This is in the bone marrow. Erythroid hyperplasia and reversal of the ratio. Okay. In the blood, you will find increased young RBCs like reticulocytes.
More than one.
Even some of the nucleated RBCs you will find. Nucleated. Normally you do not find. But when the bone marrow is throwing, oh, I need more blood cells. So it is throwing young RBCs. Some of the nucleated RBCs also go. Like the last RBC. What is that called as?
Reticulocyte.
Now, before that.
Orthoblast.
Late normoblast. Some of the late normoblast will also go into the blood. So you can find them. So you can find young RBCs and late normoblast, which contains the nucleus also in the peripheral blood film. And you can find polychromasia. Polychromasia means the basophilic tinge inside the RBC. This is just like reticulocytes. And leukocytosis, more formation of even the WBCs. Because bone marrow is responding. Sometimes it will form more WBCs also. There is more formation of the RBCs and also of the leukocytes.
ME ratio decreased.
Yeah, because more erythroid hyperplasia is there.
So both of them are more, but erythrocytes
Yeah,
are
the hyperplasia in the erythroid precursors is more as compared to the WBC precursors. This is a very big. I try to reduce it, but when you are trying to explain the things, then you are slowed down. Still we have time. We have only discussed the general features till now. Got it? In half an hour. Then hereditary spherocytosis. What do you mean by hereditary spherocytosis? It is one of the intracorpuscular defects. Okay? Membrane defect. So there is something wrong with the membrane cytoskeleton of the RBCs. What is this wrong? Most of the time it is autosomal dominant. HS is autosomal dominant in 75% of the cases. So if you get a question, it is autosomal dominant. Although 25% of the cases can be recessive also. But mostly it is autosomal dominant. And what is the mutation here? Most common mutation is in red cell ankyrin. I will tell you what is ankyrin. Red cell ankyrin followed by band 3, spectrin and band 4.2. But the most common is red cell ankyrin mutation. What it will lead to? It results in increased membrane instability. In a way, if there is mutation of red cell ankyrin or some other proteins, cytoskeletal proteins, what it will lead to? The membrane will become unstable. RBC membrane. It is a biconcave disc. Okay? So it has got extreme flexibility. But it becomes unstable. It means, unstable means there will be loss of the membrane now. Some loss of the membrane. So small vesicles from the membrane will be lost. and there will be decrease in the surface to volume ratio. Normally the surface to volume ratio is more, so that RBCs can expand, they can biconcave disc, they can pass through the cords of Billroth in the spleen very easily because they are flexible. That is why they are biconcave disc, because they can but if they are spherical they will not be able to pass. So they should bend themselves. This is why they are biconcave discs. So membrane loss in this disease will cause the formation of spherocytes. So they will not be biconcave discs now. They will become spherocytes. Spherocytes are like this. So they cannot, biconcave discs. So biconcave discs are like a disc. So this disc can, bend and go through small spaces. But spherocytes cannot go because they cannot bend. There is loss of the membrane. So membrane to volume ratio is decreased. So spherocytes are less deformable. When they will try to pass through the spleen, they will get destroyed. Why? Because they will get sequestered inside the spleen. They will be stopped inside the spleen. Okay? And once they are stopped, there are monocytes and macrophages. So once they come contacting with the RBCs, they will destroy them. Okay? So they have to pass quickly. They cannot afford to touch the macrophage. No. It's like, what do you call it as? Cat waiting for the rat. Huh? Rat remains like this in front of the cat, so cat will eat it. So when you see the cat, run away. Huh? Like this. So I will tell you this. I will show you the example. RBC cytoskeleton contains vertical. This is vertical or horizontal? This one.
Horizontal.
This is horizontal, isn't it?
Yeah.
This is the vertical. Okay?
Yes.
It contains two portions. One is the vertical portion, another is the horizontal. What are the proteins now? There is pectin here in the horizontal portion. Okay? In the vertical you have band 3, ankyrin, band 4.2 and actin. Okay? This is the cytoskeleton which is attached to the RBC membrane, which helps in the stability of the membrane and deformability. Okay? It helps in the deformability. These actin and other molecules will contract and the RBCs will be changing the shapes. It will become more flexible. So if there is, mutation anywhere in the spectrin, in the ankyrin, this is going to affect the stability of the RBC. In nutshell, this whole cytoskeleton is responsible for the stability of the membrane and the flexibility of the RBC. If there is something wrong in any of the protein, it will result in loss of the stability and loss of the flexibility of the RBC. So what will happen? Some of the membrane, when there is some mutation, it will be lost. And ultimately the RBC will become spherical. And in the spleen, it will come in contact with the macrophage and macrophages will destroy it. This is known as extravascular hemolysis. Got it? This is the extravascular hemolysis. Again, spectrin and ankyrin deficiency, band 3 or protein 4.2 deficiency will lead to the loss of small vesicles. Small vesicles will be lost because of instability of the membrane. So RBCs will become spherical in shape. When they go to the spleen, they will be trapped because they are not flexible. So they will be trapped. There is erythrostasis. It means RBCs are going to stay there for a longer period of time. When they stay there for a longer period of time, they will come in contact with the macrophages. So RBC pH will be decreased. And what it will do? It will cause destruction of the RBC. Acidosis itself can cause destruction and macrophage contact will definitely cause. So this will further make loss of the membrane, more spherocytes, and ultimately this is a vicious cycle. More hemolysis. Here RBC enter. Okay? Further loss of membrane, microspherocyte, further trapping, some of hemolyzed, some again become microspherocytes until they are hemolyzed. So it goes like this. Come, some go here, then hemolysis. So vicious cycle. In a cycle it is occurring. how the patient will come to you. He will have one anemia, he will be having, no doubt about that. Then jaundice, it is feature, splenomegaly because of extravascular hemolysis. Then some of these patients have aplastic crisis. In between there is no formation of the red blood cells, WBCs, aplasia in the bone marrow because of parvovirus B19 virus infection. Okay?
Hepatitis.
No. This is a virus which particularly affects the bone marrow and causes aplasia in the bone marrow. Okay? Aplastic crisis. Aplastic crisis.
It's a reversible condition, doctor.
Yeah, it's a reversible. If it is treated, it can be reversed. So in between, they can have parvovirus B19 infection, and that will cause aplastic crisis in the bone marrow. Then, second thing is, they can have cholelithiasis or pigment stones. Okay? They can have more formation of the stones inside the gallbladder. That is known as cholelithiasis or pigment stones. And they can have hemosiderosis or systemic hemosiderosis, means
Accumulation.
they will have accumulation of iron in the many organs of the body. That is systemic hemosiderosis. Why it occurs? Because of overload of the iron.
Yes.
Compensatory mechanisms not only secrete the erythropoietin, but they cause increased absorption of iron from the gut. So iron increases in the body. Already there is just so increase of iron throughout the body, it will cause systemic hemosiderosis. And this is what you will find. Spherocytes. Can you see the central pallor?
No.
No. So this is loss of pallor. You will not see the hypochromia now. Spherocytes, rounded RBCs with loss of central pallor. This is the feature in hemolytic anemia mostly. How you will diagnose now this hemolytic anemia? Hereditary spherocytosis.
Osmotic fragility test.
Yeah, we will come to that. So lab diagnosis is based on the family history. Autosomal dominant. So family history is important. Then you have the hematological findings. MCHC is greatly increased. Got it? More than 36% because it is full of hemoglobin. Smaller RBC is full of hemoglobin, no hypochromia. Peripheral smear you will find spherocytes, rounded RBCs along with the polychromasia or increased reticulocytes. And you have two tests which are very important here. Osmotic fragility test.
Yes.
What is this? Red blood cells, if you keep it in hypotonic saline, what will happen? In progressive hypotonic saline, what will happen? Anybody? Good.
Exchange fluid from outside to
Yeah.
outside.
So to maintain the osmolarity, suppose,
Hypertonic and hypotonic.
okay, this is RBC. Here we keep hypotonic solution,
And hyper.
okay, saline. What will happen now? To maintain the osmolarity, what will happen?
Should be balanced between.
Fluid will go from the hypotonic saline into the RBC, isn't it?
Yes.
It is hypotonic, means it contains less solutes. It is not hypertonic. Got it? If it is hypertonic, fluid will move out of the RBC. So hypotonic means fluid will move into the RBC. Normally what happens if the concentration is at around 0.45% saline and you decrease it,
Yes.
it will start at 0.45% of hypotonic saline. Then you decrease it, it will be at 0.35%. Whole of the RBCs will be hemolyzed. Okay, all the RBCs, they will be hemolyzed. What happens here in this case, here hereditary spherocytosis, the osmotic fragility is increased. More chances of lysis are there. So even at 0.68% hemolysis starts. It doesn't wait up to 0.45. It starts at 0.68% and is completed at 0.46. So here the normal value remains there only. Okay. So it gets hemolyzed at a higher concentration of salt. Okay. This is osmotic fragility test. Then is the autohemolysis test. Normally, if you keep a person's blood, 0.2 to 2% hemolysis will occur after 48 hours. Normally also, if you incubate the blood of a person, 2% of the RBC will be destroyed automatically within 48 hours. But in hereditary spherocytosis, it is increased autohemolysis. So 12 to 15% will be destroyed after 48 hours.
Doctor,
So this is how, yes,
which one of them are more accurate?
osmotic fragility. We take more.
Doctor, what about erythropoiesis? Is it important here?
Electrophoresis.
Electrophoresis is most important in case of hemoglobinopathies.
Sickle's anemia or
Hemoglobinopathy, thalassemias and so here these are the tests which will be more employed, like osmotic fragility test and the autohemolysis test, along with the findings in the blood and the history of the patient. So this is hereditary spherocytosis. Is it clear?
yes, clear.
Membrane disorder, okay. Red cell ankyrin, autosomal dominant. There will be loss of membrane and the RBCs will be trapped inside the spleen, leading to extravascular hemolysis. And these will be the findings. You will find spherocytes, and sometimes you can have other things also. Like most of the times you will have splenomegaly, hemosiderosis and polylithiasis. And osmotic fragility test, autohemolysis test, and the findings in the peripheral blood film are diagnostic. In the enzymopathies, what you will find now? The most important enzyme is the G6PD. Okay? G6PD, what is the full form? Glucose 6-phosphate deficiency. This is the most common red cell enzyme disorder. Okay? This is X-linked. So it will be more present in the...
Because he has a...
I don't have a knife. So it is more present in the females. Okay? But it can be... Look, I also got confused. So more present in the males, but can be present in the females because of inactivation of the X chromosome.
Yeah.
That is also sometimes known as unfavorable lionization. Unfavorable. Go home and read about it. Okay?
Yeah.
Unfavorable lionization or inactivation of the X chromosome. When the X-linked disorders they present in the females. Okay? This is very important.
Okay.
So mostly it is present in the males. It is X-linked. There are 40 variants of this G6PD deficiency. 40 variants. But the most important variants are G6PD-A and G6PD Mediterranean. Mediterranean in this area, Middle East. Okay? And what is the function of G6PD? The function of G6PD is it catalyzes this reaction. We will go directly to the reaction to save time. So this is G6PD enzyme. Okay? First reaction in the pentose phosphate pathway. Glucose 6-phosphate converting into 6-phosphogluconate. Okay? What happens now when this reaction occurs? NADPH gets converted into NADP.
Yes.
NADP gets converted into NADPH. Isn't it?
By this enzyme.
So this gets converted into this. Now what happens? This NADPH is important. Why? Because it will be utilized by glutathione reductase to convert glutathione to reduced glutathione. Okay? This reduced glutathione will be utilized by glutathione peroxidase to convert H2O2 into H2. This is occurring inside the RBC, mind you. This is important. So what does it mean? To make it more simpler, normally also H2O2 is formed in every cell. It is a free radical, you know. Free radicals are formed inside the cells. But body has a mechanism to reduce these free radicals. Okay? How? This H2O2 is normally formed in the RBC. But how it is converted back into water which is not harmful. Okay? This is harmful to the cell. This is not harmful. So this is done by G6PD. Indirectly. You got it? Indirectly. So it catalyzes this reaction, it forms the NADPH. This NADPH is used by the glutathione. Okay? And it converts it back into the water. So if G6PD deficiency is there, what will happen now?
More free radicals,
more of free radicals, more of H2O2, which will cause damage to the RBC.
Destruction.
We will see how it will cause. So, we are going forwards. So it catalyzes, as you know, NADPH is needed for glutathione reduction. When this glutathione protects the hemoglobin, because when more H2O2 is formed, it will denature the hemoglobin. Denaturation of the hemoglobin will cause its precipitation. Molecules of the hemoglobin will precipitate. When there is more H2O2, it will denature the hemoglobin. It will damage the hemoglobin. And these molecules will precipitate and form Heinz bodies. Okay? Form Heinz bodies. We will show you the diagram also. So they say H2O2 oxidizes, denatures and precipitates the hemoglobin, forming the Heinz bodies which are intracellular inclusions. And these Heinz bodies, once they are formed, they will damage the membrane. They will damage the membrane. When the membrane is damaged, there will be intravascular hemolysis inside the circulation. And also when these cells which have the Heinz bodies, they pass through the spleen, what will happen? Yeah, extravascular hemolysis. How? Because macrophages will recognize these RBCs are not normal. They are containing something. They are containing Heinz bodies. So this is Heinz body here. Okay, this is Heinz body. Okay. So macrophage, once it is passing through spleen, macrophage is not normal RBC. Try to pluck it. Try to pluck it. Just like you pluck something. Huh? So it will pluck and bite it. So you will find bite cells in the circulation. Got it?
Yeah.
Bite cells in the circulation. So splenic macrophages or phagocytes will pluck out the Heinz bodies. Pluck out the Heinz bodies from the RBCs, forming the bite cells. So cells can become trapped in the splenic sites and are destroyed. So this is extravascular hemolysis. So we will go here. These are the bite cells. So when these RBCs are passing through the spleen, they have been plucked out.
By macrophage.
Bitten. So here, this is bitten part. This is the bitten part. This is the bitten part. As if apple has been. You have. So this is bite cells, as if they have been bitten by something.
Yes.
No, normally there is in this G6PD patients deficiency enzyme is there. Normally there is no hemolysis. And G6PD activity is highest in the young cells, young RBCs. As they become old, activity decreases because RBCs have a limited capacity to form the enzymes. You know that because no nucleus is there, so limited capacity to form the enzymes. So as the RBC ages, becomes old, the activity of the enzymes decreases. So it is more going to affect the old RBCs. Got it? More going to affect the old RBCs. So, but the main mechanism behind all this is H2O2 formation. How the H2O2 is formed? It is formed because of the oxidative stress. So if there is no oxidative stress, the person will be alright. No problem. Okay? Maafi mushkil. But if there is oxidative stress, when the oxidative stress occurs in cases of infections, severe infection like pneumonia, typhoid fever, in cases of many drugs like anti-malarial, sulfonamides, vitamin K derivatives, in cases of fava beans, you add, eat here fava beans, and in also newborns, there is more chances of oxidative stress. So when there is more oxidative stress, what will form? More H2O2. Okay? It will exceed already the G6PD is deficient.
More the
Okay? So more formation of H2O2. This H2O2 will attack the hemoglobin and cause its precipitation and denaturation. So more Heinz bodies will be formed. Once more Heinz bodies are formed, there will be more intravascular hemolysis because of the membrane damage, and they go to the spleen where they will be plucked out. So there will be more extravascular hemolysis. So more intra, more extravascular hemolysis. Okay, this is the pathogenesis.
Sir, how can we diagnose this condition?
Will come. Diagnosis is and management. Okay, so this is what you will find now. This is also known as Heinz body anemia. Okay, Heinz body anemia. So there will be anemia, reticulocytosis, bite cells, jaundice. This is the findings in the blood film in the person. How you will find the Heinz bodies now? This is the normal blood film. You cannot find Heinz body. Heinz body you have to stain, special stain, which is called supravital staining. So if you go for the supravital stain, in the RBC you will find these dots. These are Heinz bodies. These are basically precipitation of the hemoglobin. Precipitation of the hemoglobin. So these are Heinz bodies you will find. How you will diagnose it? By all the features. By Heinz body is one of the important features. By bite cells. Bite cells are there. Heinz body is there. And by enzyme activity. Enzyme. You have to measure the enzyme in the blood. Okay? If there is decreased enzyme activity, you can say this is. But you can go for the variants also, like G6PD, A or Mediterranean. You will find. Huh? And therapy is you have to avoid the oxidative stress. avoid the drugs, avoid the infections if you can. Okay, if you avoid the oxidant drugs, the person will be normal. But in case hemolysis is there, destruction of the RBC, you can give transfusion from outside. Okay.
Transfer the precipitated hemoglobin.
Yeah, it is the denatured and precipitated hemoglobin because H2O2 damages the hemoglobin. It becomes denatured and it precipitates. Many molecules precipitate and form Heinz bodies. So this is hemoglobin. So what happens? H2O2 damages it. So many molecules of hemoglobin they precipitate together, and this is the Heinz body. It is the precipitation or denaturation of the hemoglobin. This is how you will diagnose. Okay, clear?
Yes, yes.
From the enzyme activity or from the blood picture. Immune hemolytic anemias. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. 25 people are there, but I know the names who came late, so you will give me 25 only. The attendance. You will give me, okay?
I'll give you one.
Attendance.
Okay.
Yeah, 25 only, but
Okay.
then I will delete those who are late. I will make them cross. So immune hemolytic anemias. Immune hemolytic is, I will. Who is telling why? You want to fight with me? I am ready. I am very fresh today. So immune hemolytic anemias, they are mediated by the antibodies. Okay. You have warm antibody. Warm means hot. Okay. Not hot. Warm. In between hot and normal. So warm antibody is most common form of immune hemolytic, 48 to 70%. It is mediated by the IgG antibody. Remember, IgG antibody, usually it will not fix the complement. It doesn't fix the complement and it is active at 37 degrees centigrade. That is why it is known as warm. It is active at 37 degrees centigrade. That is why we call it warm. So IgG coated red cells, suppose IgG has bound the red cell. Okay, this is IgG, this is red cell. This IgG red cell doesn't, fix the complement. No complement is there. But when this RBC along with attached immunoglobulin goes to the spleen, macrophage has a receptor called Fc receptor. Okay, macrophage has a receptor. So it recognizes the Fc portion of the antibody and binds it.
Yeah.
Got it? Look, this is antibody, this is RBC. Macrophage is here. There is FAB portion and FC portion.
Yes.
Okay. Macrophage has a receptor for recognizing the FC. So it recognizes it, binds it. So what it will cause? It will not leave it. It will destroy the RBC. Okay. This is how the extravascular hemolysis occurs.
It will not be binding cell.
No. It will destroy the RBC. Once it is bound, so
Doctor,
it will come in contact with the RBC, will come in contact with the macrophage, so it will destroy it.
so Doctor, destruction in case of here is mediated by IgG antibody.
Yeah, here it is mediated by IgG, which is active at 37 degrees centigrade, and IgG coated red cells bind to the Fc receptors on the macrophages where they are destroyed. So there is extravascular hemolysis. Got it?
Perfectly.
And hemolysis is extravascular. Types are primary or idiopathic. No cause is known, and secondary is because of drugs, neoplastic, and autoimmune disease. Because we are running out of time, so I want to finish this one. Rest you can study at home, 2 slides. Cold agglutinin immune hemolytic anemia. So these are mediated by IgM, okay, and which are most active outside, in vitro at 0 to 4 degrees centigrade. In vitro. So it means they are functional at a colder temperature, So in the body, these antibodies, fingertips, this nasal tip, ear lobules, they have a lower temperature. Okay, they have a lower temperature. So antibodies bind to the RBCs below 30 degrees centigrade in the peripheral cool parts of the body, like fingers, ears, and toes, and it fixes the complement. IgG in that anemia doesn't fix the complement. It fixes the complement, but the complement will not get fully activated. Now what happens when these RBCs go back to the warmer parts of the circulation? IgM dissociates, but some part of the complement remains, like C3b. It remains attached to the RBC. Now what will happen? This C3b again, the Kupffer cells in the liver have a receptor for this, so they recognize it and destroy the RBCs. Okay. So again leading to extravascular hemolysis. The causes are acute because of infections like mycoplasma and infectious mononucleosis, and chronic may be idiopathic or may be associated with some lymphomas. So nutshell, warm antibody is mediated by the IgG, cold by IgM. IgG is active at 37, cold is active at in vitro 0 to 4, and inside the body in the peripheral cooler parts, which are at 30 degrees centigrade. In both there is extravascular hemolysis, but in warm the hemolysis is mediated by the IgG itself, but here it is mediated by the complement C3b. Is it clear? So direct Coombs test. Sorry, but I have to take 2 slides. I will take, rest 2 you can read yourself. This is a very hemolytic anemia. Very big. P6PD requires 1 lecture. So how much you will make concise, because I want you people to understand also. Coombs test is when direct Coombs test. Direct Coombs test is when you directly test the blood of the patient. Indirect Coombs test is when you test the plasma of the patient. Simple. Direct blood of the patient, and indirect the plasma or serum of the patient. Okay. In the direct you will take the blood of the patient. It is used to detect autoimmune hemolytic anemias. So RBCs already have bound the antibodies like this. This is RBC, antibody is bound. You will add from outside a known serum which contains antibodies against these antibodies or against the complement. So if you want to detect a person is having antibody attached or complement attached to the RBC, so he is a patient, you want to confirm it. You will add serum from outside which contains antibodies against the antibody or against the complement. So if it is present, so these antibodies will bind and will cause agglutination of the RBC. You will say this is autoimmune hemolytic anemia. So you test the blood and RBCs have already attached the antibody and the complement. Okay? Used to test the autoimmune hemolytic anemia, and in indirect Coombs test you test the plasma or serum. Patient serum which contains the antibodies. You add known RBCs which can react against these from outside. Okay, these will attach. Yet then you add the antibodies against these antibodies. Okay, you add the antibodies, then these antibodies attach. So what will happen? There will be agglutination or thrombosis in a sort of a thing. Indirect Coombs test is used to test for the prenatal testing in pregnant women. We want to know whether a patient, we can give him the blood transfusion or not. So we want to know whether the serum of the patient contains the antibodies or not. If the patient serum contains the antibodies, we will not give him. Got it? Got it? Prenatal testing as well as blood transfusion testing. So these 2 slides you go home and read it. These are not much difficult. I hope